Hey Scoops, good morning. Autumn here. So there is a little part in the background noise. It does seem like they're cutting the grass, which hey, I'm not upset about that. Cut grass smells amazing. I'm going to cover a couple of different things this morning. There's a couple of things that I said in my most recent videos. One of them that I'm like, oh my God, I know for a fact that those right-wingers, those ones in those small little circles are going to have a real issue with what I just said. So I want to address a few things. One, I'm going to touch upon first beginning with your spiritual guides, your spiritual guardians, your angels, relatives, and ancestors, right? Because I get this question all the time when I'm doing my readings, and I know that it's a curiosity thing, right? Like, who are my spiritual guides? Who are my spiritual guardians? Who are my angels? Who are the relatives that are guiding me? Who are my ancestors, right? So I'm going to touch upon each one and help you out with a little bit of that, okay? Let's start with your spiritual guides. Spiritual guides could be anyone from Isis to Hera to Buddha to Martha, right? It could be any sort of prophet, it could be any sort of thought leader, it could be any sort of truly important leader of the past, just so you know, especially people who may have spoken upon, let's face it, like supernatural, metaphysical topics, somebody who is really promoting some sort of ministry, if you will, though don't take ministry in just the Christian term of ministry, please, because there's a lot of different religions that hold weight and hold value. There's a lot of different belief systems that hold weight and hold value. That being said, I like to always explain to people that we've been handed a mishmash, if you will, of spiritual doctrine. You know, many of our tomes, many of our ancient scriptures, many of our ancient texts, many of our ancient knowledge was actually destroyed, and they've been destroyed time and time and time again. I'm going to lean on a Christian mindset just so that you can understand, and then you'll kind of comprehend going throughout the planet and various other belief systems. Everybody knows about the great flood of Noah. Do you think when this planet was flooded that scriptures weren't lost, that scrolls weren't destroyed? They couldn't take it all with them, could they? So we lost a lot of knowledge, and that goes throughout the entire planet because everybody knows that every single culture has a myth, a flood myth, right? And somebody recently put up a couple of different things that indicated that they found the Ark of Noah, that they found many different things that indicate that the flood, many archaeologists have found many different things that validate that this global flood most certainly did happen, okay? So just understand that whatever it is that you're following, whatever religious practice, whatever spiritual faith and or belief system that you're following, even though you're looking at the information, you're reading the scriptures, you're reading the passages, you're only getting part of the information. Many of us have what's called fill-in knowledge, right? Because after those particular texts were destroyed, those particular tomes of information were obliterated, of those particular ciphers, those particular passages, much of that knowledge being destroyed, then it became dependent upon who could remember. What could they remember? What parts did they remember? How much did they remember? And did they remember it accurately when they reiterated it to somebody else to scribe later on to replace whatever was lost, okay? So I just want you to understand, with that being said, a lot of our information in our spiritual belief systems, or our faith, if you will, it's a mishmash. Some of it is accurate and some of it is inaccurate information. That's why when you go through certain passages, you have what looks like a clippet, right? Or a snippet of a conversation, 2 or 3 sentences, and then they move to the next town and they were talking about something else, and you're like, wow, that wasn't much. There was a lot to that. There's probably like 3 or 4 books that went along with that. There's probably many miracles and many things that were explored and expressed and touched upon with those 2 or 3 sentences, but it was lost information. So again, I just want us to be aware that as we're moving into this age of ascension and we're moving into modern intelligence, supernatural intelligence, that there's way more that one line, if you will, okay? There was way more that was said, there was way more that was done. way more things occurred, but we don't have that information, and nobody remembered that information, and so that information is lost to us. So if you're having that kind of like, when you read something, that kind of like, why do I feel like there's a little bit more here than meets the eye? Why do I feel like there was way more to it than that? You're accurate. Your truly higher intelligence and your supernatural intuition is telling you the truth of that. So lean on that. Know that there may have been more. Know that you're probably most accurate, because, come on, let's face it, was it 2 sentences, or was it like maybe 3 weeks of actual ministry that actually occurred, and things that were happening, and events that occurred, and situations that occurred that were addressed and actually provided some sort of synopsis that was much larger than the 2 sentences that you're reading. So with this being said, there's a lot of things that we believe in, a lot of things that we have as a faith, a lot of things that we practice that is an amalgamation of truth, twisted or remembered information, what we would normally call heresy, if you will, or like, let's face it, the telephone game. Like, you tell that person, they tell another person, they tell another person, that person forgets to tell somebody. 300 years later, somebody says, oh, do you remember that? Oh yeah, let me tell you that. How well do they remember it? And then they tell that person, and that person interprets it and tells it their way, and another person interprets it and tells it their way. So I have a lot of kind of, how can I say, objective perspective on faith, right? And this is a really important thing that I'm about to jump into. But with that being said, there were also many different leaders, many different prophets, many different spiritualists, many great gurus, many great teachers, many great basically enlightened beings that walk this planet. And you may not know their names, you may not know of them or their ministry when they were here, but these would be people who are your spiritual guides. So for many of them, they don't have a name because we don't know their name. And even if we knew their name, it may not have been their real name, right? So because a lot of information, we have to remember, people have been persecuted. So their names were changed, Scoobs. You know, like possibly it was George and his name was Ralph, because Ralph wasn't going to be persecuted, but George was known throughout 300 cities and 2 countries. And so since George was being persecuted, they started calling him Ralph. And you get the gist of what I'm saying. So it's not necessary for you to know who your spiritual guides are. Just know that it's the information that you're getting that is in alignment, that resonates with you, that doesn't leave you feeling stuck, doesn't push you backwards on your path of ascension, and most certainly does not cause you to do anything that is self-harming. It would only bring you to greater information, greater enlightenment, greater knowledge. So that's how you know who your spiritual guides are. Your spiritual guardians are just that, spiritual guardians. We have many different beings that are on the astral and the spiritual planes. They are not just angels, they are not just demons, there are other types of beings that are out there. We've read about these in quote-unquote folklore and mythology. You may have fae that protects you. You may actually have daemons that protect you and you're unaware. You have angels always that are protecting you, so those are definitely part of the angel canon that I always refer to, right? You have your known guardian angel, which takes an oath when you are born that they will watch over you and protect you. So your archangel, your angels, your guardian angel who is always with you. And then you may have daemons, you may have fae, you may have other types of entities that we don't have the name of, like, you know, from celestial stars that are your guardians, your spiritual guardians. Again, all of these beings are only going to protect you, redirect you from a path that is faulty or that might bring you to ruin, and lead you to a place that's enlightened and keep you safe, okay? So that, for lack of a better term, and I just want you to understand that there's good and bad in everything. Everything has good and bad. Every single being can do something righteous and do something unrighteous, okay? Every single being can do something that they think is right. And it may not be the right thing for you at that moment, right? So, or it may not be the right thing for mankind at that moment. And then that turns into what? That they did it for the sake of righteousness, but it turned out to not be such a great idea. So you have to understand that right and righteousness and unrighteousness, that's a real perspective, all right? But anyway, those who are guarding you and watching you, they're guardians, they're always going to direct you away from trouble, right? So you may actually have daemons that protect you and redirect you away from trouble, right? As well as angels that direct you and redirect you away from trouble. So you have to take it as a fluid kind of energy field, right? Everybody's literally working together. Now, another thing that people need to remember, and what we've definitely lost knowledge of, is that daemons and angels are brothers and sisters. They are relatives. They are of the same class. They are actually kin. So calling one evil and one holy does not make any sort of sense. Do you understand? One controls and dominates the 3D realm, and the other controls the celestial heavens. And they do work in unison, okay? There is no division of those classes. They harmonize for your greater good and to guard you and protect you and guide you. The next thing I want to address is your relatives, your ancestors, right? I've addressed the angels, so you understand they're both daemons and angels in the canon that we understand. I've addressed your spiritual guides and spiritual guardians, and we understand who they are. So now I'm going to address your ancestors. Your ancestors could be ancestors in your lineage. Oh, I'm sorry, let me touch back upon, pardon me. You can also have spiritual guides that come in throughout the course of your life. These would be guides that aren't always with you. These would be guides that step in somewhere along the path of your ascension because you've touched upon new knowledge, you've touched upon new information, you're going down a new avenue, if you will, right? And so as you start to do that, you may have new guides that come in, new people, new crossed over people, new guardians, new angels, new spiritual guides that step in along your path. So it doesn't mean that you lose the ones that you formerly had with you, but I just want to make it very clear that you accumulate new spiritual guardians and new spiritual guides along your path, okay? You could be studying something and all of a sudden you touch upon some information that the person who used to dwell in that area maybe 300 years ago was really well versed in, and suddenly they become your spiritual guide because you're touching upon that information and now they want to guide you along your path. You may not know who this individual is, maybe you just moved to that location, but they know who you are because you're tapping into something that they were well versed in and that they practice. So I hope that this is clear because I don't want to really go deep into that. The next thing that you need to understand are your ancestors. Your ancestors could have been ancestors that were here pre-flood in other earthly existences. This is people that go back in your lineage, and you don't know every single person that goes back in your lineage. Even with Ancestry.com, eventually you're going to hit a stopping point. This was the first known ancestor. This was the first known relative. You have many, many ancestors. You have what is called inherited intelligence, inherited knowledge, inherited gifts, right? Because it's handed down through your DNA. Your DNA goes back to the dawn of creation, if you will, from the dawn of mankind's creation, if you will. So your guides are definitely always with you and step in here and there, but your ancestors always watch over you. You have specific ancestors that may watch over you, that have watched over you since your conception. And they're like, this one I favor, this one I'm going to watch over, this one I'm going to guide through their life because I favor this individual, right? So your ancestors are people who are going back in your lineage, far back in your lineage, which is why I call them ancestors and not relatives, right? Because they go so far back that you wouldn't even know who they are. You don't even have a grandma or grandpa who could tell you who this person is. The next thing I want to talk to you about are your crossed over relatives. I love you, Scoobs, but in this really disposable, immediate age, just push the button and get what you want. You always think about the most recent people who have crossed over, right? And you always ask, can I talk to my uncle? Can I talk to my aunt? Can I talk to my dad? Can I talk to my brother? And I can always get you in touch with those people. All I need is their names and I can get you in touch with them. I'm a necromancer. This is what I do. But many of your relatives who might be watching over you and guiding you may be relatives that go back hundreds of generations, right? So they're a little bit younger than your ancestors, but they may be people you don't know. It could be your great Aunt Tessie from your father's side, and nobody even remembers her. There's not even a photo because they didn't have photography at the time, right? And great Aunt Tessie is the one guiding you. So again, many times when you're asking me who are my relatives that are watching over me and guiding me, you might not even know their name. They might not even go by that name. Now, another thing that I want you to understand is your relatives will visit you in your dreams. All you have to do is set a white candle up, meditate on them, and they can come and see you and visit you, okay? You can definitely connect with those who have crossed over at any given time. There is no wall except the wall of your fear or your disbelief, for lack of a better term. So your guides, you know, your relatives that guide you may be relatives from a really long time ago, and from a really long time ago, they may not go by a name that you know. I could say, you know, hey, this person looks like they have an R in their name, and you're sitting there going, I don't know that person. She's not telling me the truth. She's not legitimate. No, that person really did have an R in their name. Maybe at the time they were named Robbie, and you don't know who they are because it's not current generation. You always think in immediate terms. And there's many relatives that watch over you that aren't from your immediately recent, right? They're not always people that you've known while you were growing up. Most likely they're people that knew about you before you were even conceived, to tell you the truth, okay? Now I want to touch upon, so I hope this clears up who your spiritual guides, spiritual guardians, angels, relatives, and ancestors are, how you acquire them, how you communicate with them, and knowing their name is not important, okay? As I always say, a rose by any other name still smells as sweet, right? So it's not always important that you know the name of who's guiding you, just that you understand that there is not only one, but many people. They come to you as a collective. You know, great Aunt Tessie takes a card. That spiritual guide or guru from thousands and thousands of years ago puts in a piece. An angel or a daemon or a celestial from another realm puts in another piece, and you get the information collectively. They work together as a unit, which is why many of us call it your spiritual team. So moving forward, I want to talk to you about something that's really important, because I recently said in my video, God, and then I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that word. Why did I call it a word and not a deity? And we all know that I have faith. I'm a person of faith. I believe in the Alpha Omega. I believe in the Most High. I call him the Heavenly Creator, or you may consider that person to be a she, a feminine, because again, the Heavenly Creator is androgynous. It's male and female in balance, for the balance of creation, right? All things are created through the Most High Heavenly Creator, the Alpha, the Omega. Why did I get stymied by the word God? There is a God of this planet, and we're well aware of the God of this planet, who was hurled down from the heavens, having but so much time to rule mankind. When you hear people going, God, 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 I believe in God, I pray to God, I have faith in God, God told me this, God told me that, you should first sit back and question, which God? There's many people who practice and worship Baphomet, who is a God. Do you want that person telling you what their God thinks you should do? Let me just leave it at that. And many people refer to just God. If you just say God, guess what? You can invoke a whole slew of deities. Alright? You can invoke a whole slew of deities, and it may not be the information that you're looking for. It may not be the one that you're trying to tap into. So if you want to get in touch with the original creator, if you want to truly have a relationship with the Most High, you should refer to the Most High as one of two things: the Most High or the Alpha and Omega. That is how you invoke that particular God, the God, if you will. But I don't like the term God, because God applies to many different gods. Many different gods that rule this realm and various other levels of other spiritual dimensions. So just saying God is not a good term. Just saying God is not calling on the Most High or the Alpha and Omega. You could be invoking, you know, DEVIL himself, because he rules the material plane. God, please let me win the lottery. Which God do you think is answering that prayer? God, please smite my enemy. Which God do you think is answering that prayer? God, I think that you need to make sure that this person doesn't get the job and I get the job. Which God do you think is answering that prayer? God, I want that woman to not get pregnant. I want her to lose her baby, and I want that lover to come back to me. Which God do you think is answering that prayer? So when you hear a lot of people out here who are professing to be so very, very godly, or they're talking to God, or they pray to God all the time, sit back and look at their actions. Look at how they move. Look at how they behave. Look at how they operate in this matrix, because that'll give you a lot of clues as to exactly which God they're referring to. And trust me, they're slippery fish. They know who they're talking about when they say they pray to God. You just don't know who they're talking about when they say they pray to God, because you're assuming it's the God that you're trying to get in touch with, the Alpha, the Omega, the Most High. With that being said, I'm going to close it with how do you get in touch with the Alpha, the Omega, the Most High. Prayer is within. You should pray quietly in the closet of your home, it was stated. You don't need to go to some big chapel. You don't need to go to some temple. You don't need to go to some building in order to get in touch with the Most High, the Alpha and the Omega. My eye is roving about the earth. Do you think that the Most High is only in that building on that day at that time? Or do you think that the Most High has got his eye, her eye, their eye on you at all times? The best way to pray is to pray earnestly from your heart. Reveal thyself to me, please. And the Most High will most certainly do so, Scoops. Go into meditation, fast if you need to, abstain if you need to, so that you can get in tune with that spiritual energy. Fasting and abstinence makes you a vessel that's empty, with the ability to be filled by the holy presence of the Most High himself. All right, Scoops, I'm going to leave it at that because I just wanted to touch upon the whole many, many gods thing, all right? I hope that you're having a most beautiful and blessed holiday season. As always, I am sending you nothing but clean energy, clear energy, pure energy, love energy. Namaste.